Now I don't know what you guys think, but I reckon this piece of art is bloody fantastic. It's awesome. So as I'm pretty sure you all know, the Marines we are looking at here hail from the Ultramarines chapter or Legion, depending on when in the timeline this piece is set. I would assume it's the Scouring era. Now I think this piece of art was not only used as the cover art for White Dwarf Issue 98, but also for a standalone board game called Ultramarines, which amusingly, if I remember correctly, didn't have normal Marines in, but Scouts. Not cool. An early example of clickbait, I suppose. The crisscross texture on the top of the Space Marines backpacks reminds me of the grippy texture they put on pin vices and files and things. It's quite nice. Now the Ultramarines here, wearing Mark 6 armour, as is the best mark of armour, are bursting into the room to take on some unseen assailants. Who do you think they're fighting? I would assume it's orcs, again. Now one of the Marines at the rear of the group is carrying a heavy weapon. I can't decide if this is a las cannon or a missile launcher. What do you guys think this is? My name's Marcel, and this is Snakeworks. Now back in the days of a Rogue Trader, 1st edition Warhammer 40,000, the weapons were much less defined, a lot less recognisable, certainly a lot less than they are these days. Sometimes you just had no idea what weapon it was on a miniature that you were looking at. In my opinion, it made it more interesting. Here we have a pair of Space Marines. One of the Marines looks pretty normal, pretty standard. The other, however, does not. He looks very strange. The chap on the left reminds me of Tilp from the old Stargate TV show. Did any of you watch that? I remember watching most of them on DVD one Christmas where I binged them all. It was a good show and I miss it. The bionics that the Marine has equipped are not very elegant. These ones are very basic and rudimentary looking. Check out the foot, it's like my microphone stand. It's brilliant. The Marine on the right, if he even is a Marine, is wearing a very strange style of armour indeed. It looks cobbled together. Maybe this is the original Mark V. Would you like to see a miniature in this armour? Amusingly, the chap on the right is not only wearing weird armour, but he has decided to go for a bionic Widow's Peak haircut. My friend had one of these and his wife called it his McDonald's hair, as it looked like the McDonald's M logo. So apart from the bolter, I'm not sure if the guy on the right actually is a Marine. He might be a mercenary or pirate or something. It's only the vaguest similarity. But if he's not a Marine, what do you guys think he is? We now return to our movie of the evening, The Planet of the Apes. This picture appears to depict either a monkey or a chimp. Are they the same thing? What even is the difference between the two? I think maybe monkeys are bigger? I don't know. Amusingly, the face of the monkey boy reminds me of a lad I used to work with at a place called Farmhouse Pine. We used to make pine furniture and it was really good fun. It's long gone now though, and I do miss some of those guys. There was something therapeutic about making furniture out of wood. It went together really easily and we had all the tools we needed to do the job, and you can't beat good power tools. Well, I say power tools, these were bigger, these machines were massive. There's something interesting going on with the monkey's arms. One of them is quite skinny, and yet the other is a bit chunkier, longer and hairier. What do you think is going on here? The reason the arms are not quite right might be because what we have here is not a monkey, but a mimic. Perhaps it found arms hard to copy. Also, the mimic comes from the planet of Yamnan, not Yamam. Now that reminds me of the "your mum" joke from The Last Jedi. When we saw it at the cinema, we were all in shock when we heard that joke. There was a deathly silence all around, and that was the moment we knew it was the end of Star Wars. This one reminds me of the scene from Thor 3, the Get Help scene. Do you remember when Marvel movies were good? I don't even bother watching them anymore. One day, maybe there will be a return to form. Now this picture appears to show a squat helping his injured comrade. A nice depiction of camaraderie that we don't often see in Warhammer 40,000 art. Perhaps the comrade being cradled isn't actually injured. Maybe he's just tired from all the fighting and having a nap, and who could blame him? Now the helmets the squats wore in Rogue Trader looked a little bit like X-Wing pilot helmets from Star Wars, quite big and bulbous, but this guy's helmet has sort of tapered off like an egg. I wonder if it's been crushed or something. Although the squat's helmet looks a little crushed and out of shape, he is also holding his hand across his belly. He could be clutching at a wound there. Maybe it's both. Now in my notes I've written something about the squat's hairbands being paid for in cash, but I have no idea what I was referring to. I see no hairbands in the piece, and certainly no cash. I assume that was a typo. The expression and pose on these two guys look to me like we've just caught them in the act, red-handed as it were. These gentlemen do look very strange, but who even are they? Are they psykers of a sort, or are they Mechanicum adepts? Members of the Adeptus Astra Telepathica maybe? The guy at the front has a rather spindly hand. I wonder why this is. Is he a type of mutant, or is it just the long-term effects of being a psyker or something? Also, his nails look sharp, and he could easily scratch you with them, just like my ex. The chap at the front of the picture has a metal half mask on with a slitty eyepiece in. Metal half masks always remind me of Kano from Mortal Kombat. Nobody played as Kano when I was a lad growing up with that game, although he was a fun opponent to fight against. The man here also has a nice collection of medals or medallions about his person. We saw this once before on the Gandalf piece of art, so there's a theme here that I don't understand. Are these an early form of purity seal? What are they for? Now the concerned looking fellow in the rear of the piece is holding his dangling ball. It has fumes or smoke coming out of it, so I would have to assume this is a form of brazier. The handle at the top has a sort of crisscross style, not unlike what puppet masters use. Maybe he can make the lid open and shut. Now the ball-shaped braziers always reminded me of those weird orange things you used to make around Christmas time back in the 80s and 90s at school. You had like an orange and you used to poke cloves into it, I think, and they would smell interesting. I'm not sure why we made those, but there was probably a reason that I can't remember. Do you remember that famous Evolution of Man picture, where over time he gradually becomes more upright? Well, this piece reminds me of that, but this time it's the Walker version. Whatever these Walker things are, they remind me of the flying saucer people from that old 1980s movie, Batteries Not Included. I'm sure they also had little legs that popped out. Or did I make that bit up? Of all the walkers in this piece of artwork, the one on the furthest right hand side of the picture has the most detail, although it's still in a very dynamic and flowing style. It looks nice regardless. Not one of these walkers looks like an Imperial contraption to me. They all look very alien, although again they don't suit any current race in the setting. They also remind me a little bit of the walkers from the Macross series, which I think got named Robotech in the West. What was the name of those guys? The Zentradi or Zentradi or something? I do love the designs from the Macross show. Now the design on the one on the second from the right has an interesting mandible feature that looks a bit like the Predator's head, or a crab on legs, and I think that's a lovely design. Now, I don't really know where to begin with this piece, apart from saying we have here a big hairy ball. Well, it might be a small hairy ball. So according to my notes, this is one of the myriad weird and wonderful plants from the universe of Warhammer 40,000. There's not a lot to it, is there? Now, judging by the circular shape of this thing and the little bit of fluff or hair sticking out to the side, it also looks a bit like a yo-yo. Remember those things? Although yo-yos have been around for years, there was a period in the late 90s, I think, when they became really popular for a few weeks, even more so than that fidget spinner craze. There were people doing yo-yo classes in shops and all sorts. It was crazy. Some of the tricks were quite cool though. I always liked the one called walking the dog, but nobody could do it. You guys probably know this thing isn't actually a yo-yo, and you might be wondering what it's actually called. Well, it's a floater, but not the same as the floater from the Kevin and Perry movie though. Now, these floaters actually work a lot like how a spore mine does. It floats through the air, and then when something comes within range, it explodes, covering you with sharp floater shell and toxic pollen, I imagine. Do you think this is where the original spore mine idea came from? Was it a recycled concept, or was it just coincidence? Now, I'm willing to bet you all know what this next picture is. Well, if you're unaware, it's what is known as a Zoat. Zoats are really interesting aliens, and I feel it's a shame we don't really get to see much of them in Warhammer 40,000 anymore. I'm sure there's only ever been a handful of miniatures released for them over the years. Back in the day, the Zoats were affiliated with the Tyranids, I think, although it's possible they were their own thing. My gut tells me they were some sort of heralds, like the Silver Surfer and Galactus, or maybe even the mouth of Sauron. Remember that guy? There's one piece of Zoat trivia that I always found really amusing, and I don't know if it's still canon. That is that they like to eat Zoatibix. It sounds like a cross between Weetabix and a biscuit. As a lot of you probably already know, the Zoat was recently redesigned for Blackstone Fortress and had a little expansion set just for it. Sadly, it's already been discontinued, and I don't think you can get hold of it anymore. That means all the Zoats are again OOP, which is a shame. Now, even though it's currently OOP, there's always a chance they could come back again. My guess is they will return as some sort of kill team in the near future, as either their own thing or again perhaps part of the Tyranids. Either way would be lovely. Our next piece of art today features this young man, a very angry looking squat. He's not happy at all, is he? Now, I think the reason the squat is angry is because someone appears to have attacked him in the eye somehow and smashed his very expensive Ray-Ban sunglasses. Or do you think they're Oakleys? Our squat here is wearing typical squat attire for the time: the helmet, flak jacket, and Santa Claus boots combo. Does anyone know the real name of the Santa Claus boots style? They're big and also have that downturned collar bit. They're certainly not Uggs. Well, they might be. The squad is equipped with one of the Oldhammer style chainswords, which is just a long pointy triangle. I can't say I've seen a squat with a chainsword before. Was this a standard close combat weapon for them in Rogue Trader? Usually, we like to take a look at the weapons on display in these pieces and try to identify them, but this time it's almost impossible due to the muzzle flare covering up his gun. So if I was to have to guess, I would say it's an auto pistol. On the squat's right Santa's boot, on our left, on the collar, there is what appears to be a tribble, a little hairy ball. They turned up in Star Trek from time to time. I think I recall them being in only 2 episodes, but I'm not the biggest Star Trek expert, so they might have been in more. Now, I never saw the original Tribble episode from the original series of Star Trek with Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock. but I did see the DS9 version. And I did really like Star Trek DS9, to be fair. I thought it was a good show. Now, speaking of really liking things, if you're enjoying this video, then please consider liking it and subscribing to the channel. That means you, Ben. If you are enjoying the content on the channel, then please consider joining us on Patreon, the link to which is in the description below, or up here somewhere. Or you could even become a channel member, which is becoming all the rage these days. Again, there's a link to that in the description below somewhere. Anyway, that's enough e-begging. Let's carry on. This next one is an intriguing piece. What we're looking at are some Space Marines and some squats in the jungle, or some sort of battleground with pipes and vines hanging down. Now, in the early days of Rogue Trader, the Ultramarines were a big deal. Lots of the art featured them, but when 2nd edition rolled around, they had to take a back seat as the Blood Angels became king. There was even a short period of time in between when the Space Wolves were top dog. Top dog? Get it? I'll get my coat. The squats in this piece appear to be captives, don't they? They even have some sort of collars attached to their necks and each other. I wonder if they explode, like most sci-fi captives' collars do. The last exploding collars I saw were in a TV show called Cyber City Oedo 808. It was an anime, one of my favourite ever animes, I'll have you know. I loved the English dub as a teen with all the swearing and violence. Oh, and the soundtrack was awesome too. Now, do you think these squats have been captured by the Ultramarines, or are they being rescued by the Ultramarines and being taken to safety somewhere? Either way is possible, I feel. Space Marines are known for their signature weapon, the bolter. However, this Space Marine doesn't appear to be carrying a bolter. Whatever sort of weapon it is, it appears to have a radar dish of sorts on the end. Could this be a conversion beamer? I love conversion beamers. One of the best looking weapons in the game. So wonderful artwork there. If you want to see some more Oldhammer themed artwork, then check out the playlist up here somewhere. And as always, thank you very much for watching.